It's the anniversary of today, huh?
Yeah.
The good and the bad. 13 years ago, Garrett Hartley kicks the Saints in the Super Bowl. And 6 years ago, or 5 years ago now, it's 5 years now. Um, the the theft. I can't even watch that game. I
Yeah.
refuse to watch it. That's one of the few Saints games I will never watch ever again, just because it angers me so much to even think about this. Um, Welcome everybody to an exciting episode of Under the Dome. And look, I'm gonna use the word exciting, and I'm gonna use the word laughter. Um, I'm gonna use the word joy because that's how Sean needs to be remembered.
Hmm.
For those of you who may not have seen my post that I posted in the group, Sean passed away um, uh, Saturday morning. I was supposed to go see him this weekend, in fact, and he passed away Saturday morning. I got a message from one of his former bandmates. Actually, messaged me first, and I called his and I think they went to church together too. And then I went and contacted his mom, and his mom did confirm that Sean did pass away. I had talked to his wife, I want to say last Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. Um, and she had taken the kids to go see him, and she just kept remarking how thin he was and how drawn he looked. So I should have known the end was near. I was just hoping he would be around a little bit longer. That's the hard part. You always want more time, and for Sean, I I found this out once this happened to him, and once I started getting updates from his family. Sean had a lot of friends on social media, and had a lot of friends personally, and
Yeah.
people were reaching out to talk to me and to talk to, I talked to um, Paula here Saturday night. We must have texted, geez, all night, 3 hours, 4 hours, so about Sean. Um,
And Paula, you popped up on my timeline this afternoon, yeah, as someone I may know. So, thank you for accepting my request. Sean, I didn't know Sean nearly as long as a lot of you other guys, but yeah, he did mean the world to me. He always called me his little brother or his brother from another mother. Uh, but yeah, there was definitely a mutual pride between Sean and myself, and the esteem that we held for each other.
yeah, Sean passed away. Excuse me. He was in hospice care. He passed away from respiratory failure. His mom had told me a few weeks ago that the fire had done more damage to his lungs than they thought. He was struggling to breathe. He needed a tube for a long time. They finally removed the tube in at the last week of the year, but they said that he wasn't coming back from this. He was going through respiratory failure, and then he he only had 5 or 6 months at the time, and that was not even 6 weeks after that. So it was fast. But the good news is he didn't suffer. He wasn't in pain. Um, he uh, he died with, if there's a term that people say, he died with dignity. He died as himself. He didn't become like so many, unfortunately, in hospice care, where he's not even aware of what's around him anymore.
Hmm.
He had talked to his family. He got to see his kids,
Yeah.
talk to them, talk to his son, all those things. I mean, it was good. If there's any blessing out of that, it was he died aware that everyone was caring for him and
Hmm.
everyone was pulling for him. Um, so yeah, but
Yeah, and yeah, and Michelle, yeah, I know you had a chance, like Alan just said, to take Anna and Drew, up to see, Sean a few days, about a week before, and you talked to me about that visit, and he did sound at least aware and alert enough, to be able to talk to the kids, and I know it's upsetting. And guys, know that both Alan and I love you guys too. We're here for you. We're all family. I mean, Under
Yeah.
the Dome was a big part of the start of my media career, especially in broadcast. In fact, you guys were my first broadcast. Uh, Came on with Barry Hurstis, another good friend that passed
Mhm.
way too early. Um,
Yeah.
and you, Alan, of course, Barry, Sean, you were all big mentors to me at this stage of my career, along with Kyle Mosley, John Hendricks, who I work with now. But you guys became more than just advisors, more than just guys that I looked up to in the industry. You, Alan, Debbie, all you guys, you became very close friends with my wife Lauren and I.
Mhm.
Sean, Michelle, Drew, Anna, you guys the same. And I do consider you family, or an extension of the family. And we see the same names and faces pop into our chat week after week after week.
Yeah.
And when you said at the beginning, Alan, that the words that we need to move on when we talk about Sean, when we continue talking about Sean, is joy, laughter, fun, because that man liked to have fun in every sense of the word. And I know he had been through a ton of Everybody knows about the cancer,
Mhm.
him beating cancer, and he came damn close to beating this too.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, but he'd also undergone a number of other personal difficulties within the last couple of years. But you wouldn't know it, because every week on this show, or every time you talk to him, it was never a woe is me, or a Debbie Downer or anything like that. He was
Mhm.
always poking fun, smile on his face, and just laughing at something. That's what I'm going to take away most.
This show, I went back to one of the first shows, and this show started. I got my first email from him about because this was his idea, this entire podcast, the name, that logo in the corner. That was Sean. Sean created all of that.
Hmm.
Okay. And we started on Google Hangouts, 6 years ago. It'd be 7 years actually this year.
Yeah.
And, he got to be friends with the guys over there at Cat Chronicles, which is another good podcast. I mean, it's Carolina, so it's not as interesting a topic as us, but it's uh it's a good podcast. And he hooked up with Tony, and Tony helped him get this off the ground. And he reached out to me, and I didn't know Sean from anybody. I was just a guy who would write things on the Saints social pages and stuff. And he he just says, "Hey, are you interested in doing a podcast with me?" I'm like, "I guess. What do you want me to do?" He says, "Well, you seem like a knowledgeable Saints fan. I would think you'd like to talk about the Saints, and I read some of the things that you write, and I like what you say. You interested in doing that?" So I said, "Okay, I'll do it. I'll try it for a little while and see how this goes." And here we are, 7 years later, and I'm still doing this podcast. I mean, but we would, and the idea this show, if you notice, every single show is a title of a song.
Hmm.
That was Sean's idea. Now Sean kind of limited to 80s heavy metal songs,
Yeah, that's
and
fine by me.
yeah, I started when I started doing it and taking over the creation of the show and setting all that up because Sean couldn't do that anymore. Um, I was like, okay, we're going to expand this a little bit because I'm going to try and find a song title that kind of fits what the theme of the show is going to be. Because I can't, I don't know, I can't I'll run out of titles. I can't put Flying High again, and we're going to go talk about I don't know, 6 turnovers in a Saints game. I'm not going to call it that. I'm going to call it something else. So got a Billy Joel song here, Only the Good Die Young. I'll reach into country music and and Sean's like, that's cool, whatever. He just wasn't care about, he got tired of seeing all my exes live in Texas every time I came up with a Texan game for preseason. I'm like, well, it's King George. I got to use him. So, but yeah, it was, Sean was such an easy person to do this with too. That was the other thing. He wasn't rigid about the format. The first few times I tried putting out a little schedule, breaking it up by time and stuff, and Sean's like, I'm not going to do all that. I just want to roll with it, and then we're like, okay, we'll do it that way. Yes, AC/DC. Oh, that was the one I could have been using over and over and over again. I tell you what, he was an AC/DC fan for sure. And I don't know how many of you guys know this. Yeah, I was just getting ready to talk about this, Paula. He was in a band. He played guitar and he sang.
Yeah.
And he sent me some clips. I have to go and find them too. But he sent me clips of him performing. He was actually pretty good.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. He sent me some clips and some videos, and he was very talented along with his bandmates. Music, and obviously the Saints. You guys know this side of him, but music was something that that he absolutely loved. He had a talent for it, a passion for it, and that really came out. And if you hung out with him in person, even in a bar, he could pinpoint a song to you in 2 notes. It was incredible.
Yeah. Many like when Sean would talk about, we should do a clip, a show based off the conversation we had before the show. That was some of the things we would talk about. We would talk about music, trying to stump each other on music. The closest I ever came to playing music was playing albums. Okay. There was a long time ago, I used to DJ parties and things like that. And so I knew a lot of music trivia too. And we would have a lot of fun trying to stump each other. And that's something that's why it's not hard for me to come up with titles of shows, because I'm like, okay, I know what song that is, and I got it. So, yeah, he was a lot of fun. Now, Paul, I'm gonna have to find your YouTube now. I'm gonna have to find that YouTube page. Calvin's got a fever. Now I'm gonna play "Don't Fear the Reaper." So, but yeah, he had sent me quite a few things on Messenger too. When he got hacked and he shut down his all his social media, I lost a few things too. And but yeah, Sean also was into wrestling, and I told him a long time ago, dude, you're talking to the wrong Ulrich. You got to go find my brother. My brother's the wrestling fiend. I'm about at Mid-South wrestling level, maybe the early days of WCW and WWF. And I'm talking about, the early 80s when MTV was getting into it too. That's about the end of my wrestling time. My brother's the one that has, y'all can kind of see my bookcase back here. That's just one of the ones I've got. My brother has like a bookcase full of original WrestleMania that he taped on VHS tape. I'm like the very first WrestleMania and stuff like that. And he would go to these damn things and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sean definitely had a passion for wrestling. I hung with him as far as knowledge goes, through the Attitude Era. When me and my drinking buddies would rent pay-per-views, through Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Degeneration X, all that stuff. But Sean would be able to recite matches almost blow for blow. from the stuff that had the matches that happened off camera. Because if any of you have ever been to a wrestling event, you know that oftentimes that there are events or things that go on before they go on the air. And certainly after. A lot of people well, I've been to two. Sometimes the action is more entertaining in a stadium after the camera's shut off. But yeah, Sean will be able to recite stuff like that from the off days when they wouldn't be on TV at all. Just like he was there, he was so incredibly into it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's funny we were talking about that too, because I'd say in the old days, old Mid-South wrestling. Look here, look, my brother's on now. Yeah, the dark matches.
Yeah,
here we go.
I knew I was missing something, Danny. Thank you.
Yeah. Like I said, my brother would know it all. He remembers because he would watch old Mid-South wrestling with me. It's a half hour, an hour long show. I forgot how long it was, but you're watching, and it'd have these 2 or 3 wrestling meets or wrestling events, and then there's this one in the middle of 2 guys you didn't give a damn about them, and they would take up like 20 minutes of the 45 minutes of actual broadcast time. So the match you're waiting for is the one that would come on like 10 minutes before the show is going to end. And they're wrestling, and you're looking at the clock going, Timmy's still in the well. This thing ain't going to end before the show. The credits are going up. You're like, wait a minute, this is the one I wanted to watch. And Sean says that's how they get you hooked, man.
Oh yeah,
that's how they get you into it. Oh, I'm going up there. I'm looking at all this stuff. Yep. Andrew, the Bob and Jim are good friends. Bob had Jim Everett on his show, Bayou Blitz, quite a few times. So he's a Purdue guy. So I think you got an Everett figure behind you too, right?
I do. One of the from the old starting lineup. This one's from 1995, and Jim and I. This was early in my career. I was actually on with another guy who became a good friend of mine on a national radio show with a guy called the Rude Dog Show with Rudy Reyes, and I overlapped. This guy that I'm listening to him talk, and I'm like, he sounds awfully familiar. And Rudy just kept calling him Jim. At Jim, I remember we were previewing the Saints Washington Redskins game in 2017. And I was talking about how the two teams matched up, and occasionally this Jim would jump in and say, I agree with Bob, and this and that, and he would expound or whatever the case may be. And then when it was Jim's time to sign off, Rudy said, okay, Jim Everett, thank you for joining. And I'm like, Jim Everett. Back through the late 80s and early 90s, next to John Elway, because I've idolized John Elway. Jim Everett was my second favorite quarterback. And this is, as Sean would always do, I'm going a long way around to make a point, about Sean. But I reached out on Twitter, on Messenger, and of course I clicked the follow button for Jim Everett. To my shock, followed back, and then messaged me first. Said that thank me for being on the show with him, everything like that. And then one thing led to another, and like Alan said, he's been on my show a few times. We'll text periodically during the year, joking back and forth. Heck of a guy. And you want to talk about a guy that'll keep you rolling in stitches. But it's something that I learned from Sean and from you, Alan. And also Barry. You go out of your way to thank, regardless of name recognition or not, you go out of your way to thank somebody, when they've been on a show with you. You would think that that's common sense, but I've been on a lot of shows. I'm fortunate enough to be on a lot of shows, and I see some people that kind of drop that ball. And you guys always taught me to grab a hold of that thing, to continue making and building relationships in the industry, by just being a general cordial cordial behavior, and just talking to these guys. I mean, like I said, this guy is one of the guys that I grew up watching, but he's a man. He's a human being. He's a son. He's a father. He's a husband. He's a friend. All that stuff, just like the rest of us. And if you treat somebody like that, you can manage to build relationships. And Sean was a master at that. He's had a number of former players on with you, Alan. And I just see the way that you guys would handle them, and that's why you and Sean have been mentors to me, because I would take what you would do building relationships and just kind of incorporate that into my own work.
We've had Kyle Turley, we've had Tyrone Hughes a couple of times, we've had Joe Horn. Unfortunately, he was working on Derlin Moore, and Derlin, of course, passed away about a year and a half ago now. But I really was looking forward to getting Derlin Moore on. It was just one of those things where it didn't work out when he was available, because Derlin Moore, one of those guys that he came to the Saints during one of the worst drafts in Saints history in the mid 70s. I think the 75 draft might be 74.
I thought 74 for some reason.
It might be 74. 75 was terrible, but 74 it was probably 74. So anyway, he came in, and so he played with the really lousy Saints teams. And then Bum Phillips came in 81, sorry. And Derlin Moore was one of the survivors when Bum pretty much cleaned house and brought in his ex-Oiler players, had a great draft class. But he put Derlin Moore as nose tackle in his new 3-4 defense. And Derlin not only did well, but I mean, he thrived as a nose tackle. He stayed there all the way till almost the end of his career. I think he played one more year with the Jets, and that was his last year. But he had said at one point, he says, "I'll run through a brick wall if Bum Phillips asked me to do that." So, I really wanted to talk to him about those 70s teams and the difference once Bum came and stuff. The Kyle Turley episode. Kyle is in an interesting interview. Basically, you just hand him the rope and just let him go.
Yeah.
You don't really interview him so much as you listen to his story and try and follow his train of thought. It was good. Kyle is not somebody who holds back. He tells you what you think, and that was what was so cool about these interviews that Sean set up. All the people that we met with, because we had Brian Milne on one time, too. The people we met with, they didn't give you the stock answers. They didn't give you this is how we did it. Now I don't want to get into this detail and get that detail. No, they're going to tell you. They flat out tell you everything. Joe Horn, same way. Joe Horn tell you what was going on. He talked a lot about that Katrina year.
Yeah.
That Katrina year was something. He didn't call out his former teammates. He wasn't going to do that, but you got a good feel of what that locker room must have been like from Joe Horn. And the same with Tyrone Hughes. Tyrone Hughes, we used to wonder, how come you didn't play wide receiver? Why did they stick you a defensive back? And he ran with that. He's like, man, I tried to play receiver. I told him I could play receiver. I showed him I could play receiver, but they wouldn't let him play. So, I mean, I would have liked to have talked to Tony Elliott. So, Sean really knew how to reach out to these people and get them to come on this little podcast. And, Andrew was on here. I'm not going to be bashful. Under the Dome is, a little stepchild to Saints Happy Hour podcast. And I mean that in a complimentary way. I
Mhm.
mean, that's a huge podcast. They've got a lot of things they do that are entertaining, but it kind of gives me, and I told this to Andrew one time, it gave Sean and I a guide on where to go with a podcast. And Sean reaching out to bring these interviews really made this podcast grow in the beginning. And it was, we're going to have to get back to doing that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit harder right now. Players are a little more guarded. You really have the best luck with guys who are no longer playing at
Yes.
all.
Yeah.
Because
I've learned the same thing.
yeah, so you're tracking down former players. You're not, and the more time passes, the less players are on social media like this. Um, so it's a little tough. It's a little tough, but I'd like to get Jim Everett on. We have tried Bobby Hebert. Um, Bobby is something.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. Uh, Bobby's not a social media person. You have to go
Mhm.
through his agents and things like that. So, and I honestly don't have the time to play that tracking somebody down like that. Sean was much more um, diligent and determined to get those kind of interviews. It's a shame. So I'm gonna try and get some of that stuff back up, especially this summer, um, because that's some of the best times. You're looking for content.
Mhm.
Once the draft is over with, you've got a mini camp, and that's it. Yeah, I didn't want to go there, but yeah, that's the other trick you run into. There's a couple players who, yeah, want they want money,
Yeah.
especially former players. They're asking for
Yeah.
money.
I've run into the same kind of thing from time to time on the Bayou Blitz. And I'm not upset about it. Yeah. To each their own.
Mhm.
But our podcast is much the same as, as this one. We're independent.
Yep.
Yeah, and we just, we don't have we don't have sponsors, period. Yeah, so we can't pay out because we don't bring in the money like that. And
Yep.
I know you all see the way I'm dressed and everything like that, and you're thinking millionaire philanthropist, but yeah, that's not the case with me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat here. We're not a Patreon service. We don't charge people for this podcast. Um, but which I'm not knocking those that do.
No,
Obviously,
not at
I mean,
all.
that's we made a decision a long time ago. Sean and I, we talked about this. We made a decision not to do that because it's not what he wanted to do. He didn't want to feel the pressure, I guess, of bringing in revenue, getting sponsorships, getting people to subscribe and things like that. He just wanted to put something out there for free for people to enjoy. And we're fine with that. I'm not trying to grow this podcast into a major podcast. It is what it is.
No, and this is exactly what Sean wanted it to be.
Mhm.
From really day one, I remember again very early in my career. I was on. You guys, you and Sean were literally my first ever broadcast appearance. I came on with you two and Barry Hurstis, and I remember we did a dry run with Google Hangouts the night before, 2 days before the show, because I did it from the back room at Jared's when I was working there, and I'm terrified because I didn't know any of you guys from Adam. I had just started working with Barry, and I could tell right away. Not that Sean wasn't, but I could tell right away that NFL history was your forte, and that scared the hell out of me because that was always my thing. I would be able to to blow anybody away, and I'm like, oh my god, well if this guy Allen is bringing this to the show, what the hell am I going to bring? Because it's sure not good looks. But but
Better
but
looking than me. How about that?
but at some point, Sean is like, Sean just laughed that laugh of his, and he goes, to me, he's like, "What are you so nervous about?" And I explained. I said, you guys have all been doing this for years. I'm a rookie, and he goes, "I'll spare you the language, folks." But he goes, "Yeah, so the F what?" He goes, "We're just guys talking football, and whatever else comes to mind." And if you guys have watched Under the Dome before, you know that more often than not, whatever else comes to mind derails the show quick.
Oh,
But Sean had that way of putting you at ease. And I did. I was able to take a deep breath. And when I did the show with you guys, he called me immediately afterward and just talked. Well, we talked for another hour and a half, about just everything. And at the end of the conversation, he's like, he goes, Barry talked about you. Me and Alan talked about you, after you got off the air, because if I recall correctly, I couldn't even log off right. You guys were signing off, and I was still on the screen fiddling with buttons. Sean has always been, not only a good personal friend to me, but also such a big boost to my career. And I know for a fact that he did the same thing with so many others.
Paul is clearly drinking. Clearly drinking.
Well, Paula, I will take the compliment, my dear. Thank you.
No, and it's funny, Andrew. I always tell people the same thing. I have a complete and thorough command of completely useless information. You want to know anything about comic books, anything about Saints history, obscure football trivia, just history, weird history facts, music. I probably have some kind of thing in the back of my head. I can give that answer, but you send me to the grocery store, I got to put everything in my phone because I'm not going to remember anything that I'm told to go get at the grocery store.
Same. I will actually text myself, so that way I have reference points.
Yeah, exactly. And mixing it with alcohol, that's the only explanation I have. No, yes. And Andrew, my son actually finds those trivia questions on his own, and he tries to stump me with them too. So he does a dry run with me before he submits them to you guys on y'all's show. So yeah, Budrich is my son. So he and I have interesting time, and I gotta say, I turned him into that Saints fan. I was the horrible dad. Just like my dad took me to the Saints games. And what else Sean and I talk about? Unfortunately, him living in North Louisiana, he didn't get to go to as many games. I went to games at Tulane Stadium. I actually sat in Tulane Stadium. My dad took me. I don't remember my first game anymore. I keep going back to, I think it was 74 against the Dolphins, but I know he took me before then. I know he took me in 73 because I kept bugging him every time we were going to the game at Tulane Stadium. Are we going to the Dome? Are we going to go to the Dome game? My dad's like, it's not fitting. Like, Dad, he lives with us now, and Dad's not Mr. Subtle. Parenting was not his strong. No, I shouldn't say that. Parenting was a strong suit. Dealing with little kids' questions was not his strong suit. I asked my dad one time, because we didn't have a fireplace in our house. Dad, how does Santa Claus get in our house? Through the front door. Oh, okay. Do you lock that? I mean, I don't know. So that's how my dad was. I'd say, are we going to the Dome? Dome's not finished. We're going to the outdoor stadium. I'm like, oh, okay. Carry a seat, because we had to carry these Saint seats. Because they have wooden bleachers that you sat
right.
in. We sat in. You can't really see it, but if you look at the background here, okay, so Willow Street is at the bottom where the Rams end zone is. That's Willow Street. Okay, the top part up here, that's Claiborne. So in this far corner, up against the wall, about where you can see the Rams logo. If you went straight up to the wall, that's where we sat. That's where our seats were. And my dad got there and yeah. That's why I laugh at that meme. Says, you came to school, hard knocks. Yeah. clearly none of you have ever had to hold a flashlight for your dad while he's working on the engine at night, and it shows. But yeah, my dad had gotten tickets, and I know here we go way off on the tangent again, but my dad had gotten tickets because he had, this is way back when, because we had Saints season tickets, he had access to Super Bowl tickets. So he got to see Super Bowl 4, Super Bowl 6, and Super Bowl 9 all in Tulane Stadium.
Nice.
And he didn't go to Super Bowl 11, the first one in the Dome, because tickets, quote unquote, got too expensive. They were $35, and that was too much money. My dad's like, they're crazy. Now, I'm not going to go to the Super Bowl for $35. So that was the last we went to. And all three of them, it was cold and wet. And well, no, one Super Bowl 6 wasn't wet, but it was cold, wet, and rainy in Super Bowl 4 and Super Bowl 9. And he took my best friend's dad to Super Bowl 9. And my dad is a famous beer drinker. He will drink beer anytime, anywhere. You know, they ask him what's his favorite beer. He would always say a cold one. So
when I drank, my answer was always the closest one, but
yeah, there you go. So yeah, he was drinking ice cold beer with, 20 to 30 mile an hour winds in the stadium. It's damp and in the upper 30s, low 40s, and he's drinking ice cold beer. Mr. Lynn is like, "How?" Because my dad's Alan. "How? How can you be drinking a cold beer?" He says it's never a bad time to drink a cold beer. So yeah, so that's the story of that. So I would tell Sean stories like that. I would tell Sean about what it was like in the early days of going to the Dome. Because when they did the change, because that's an 80,000 seat stadium, 80,000 plus actually, Tulane Stadium, and the Superdome was actually smaller. It's smaller now than it was in '75 when it opened.
Yeah,
but in '75 when it opened, I think it sat 72. So it's 10,000 people who lost tickets, and the seats that were down here, they had to convert them to wherever you were going to sit in the Dome, and they stuck us up in the opera seats. That's what they used to call it, the opera box seats. So it came out over the stadium next to the scoreboard in the terrace level, and that's where we sat. And it took them a long time to realize you really need to put a rail or a wire or something on that concrete ledge, because too many people like to sit their beers on top of that ledge. And an exciting play, which didn't happen very often in the '70s, but an exciting play would happen and people would jump up and knock the beer down, and everyone in the plaza or the Loge level would get a shower of beer on them. So yeah, I had to do that one time too. I had to do that, and yeah, no, I never drink hot beer. Yeah, my brother remembers this too, because we were in a terrace level, and they had in case you guys ever wonder why the Superdome used to have those ugly ass seats in the '70s. I don't know if you had ever seen those. They were multicolor, they were plaid, all kinds of other things. This is in the days before high definition television. They did that so for television on the old 19-inch low res screens, it would look like there's people sitting in those seats.
Yes.
People kind of thinking that was, but that's what they wanted to do for TV. When they would pan, it would look like there was people in there. So even if the Saints didn't sell out, it's still like there were people in the lower levels. So yeah, that's why they had those ugly seats. And then in the '80s, they went pastel. And my brother and I we'd have races, and he remembers quite well me. If you're not rubbing, you're not racing. Would try and run him into the walls. So hey, we were doing a little NASCAR, but yeah, my dad would get so mad. We just come racing down there fast so we could get to the bottom level. So that was our entertainment after watching Saints games. something else Sean loved. Sean loved me telling stories about my brother and I and the stuff
Hmm.
we and the stuff I would do to him and everything else. He thought that was great. Sean has, if I remember correctly, and the picture we have on the show tonight, that's his son and his two little ones, or I say little, the younger ones.
Youngest, yeah. Yeah, they
Yeah,
ain't little anymore.
no, none of them are. I was surprised about that, but I believe he had a daughter as well.
Yeah.
Don't have a picture of her though, unfortunately. He has a daughter from another woman before he met Michelle.
Hmm.
He was with back then, and that surprised me. And he was a grandfather too.
Yeah, which I didn't realize until a few days ago. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to yeah, to meet yeah, obviously Michelle. Uh, I think I am pretty sure it was my first trip to New Orleans after meeting you guys.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, myself, Sean, Anna, Drew, and Michelle spent the day in Champion Square. Yeah, so we got to know each other as well as you could, within a day. But it was a day full of fun. I played catch with the kids outside of outside of Champion Square. Um, and I think it was the next year. Alan, we didn't meet you and Debbie until a different night, but Sean and
Mm-hmm.
his oldest son came out to to meet us for dinner. So unfortunately, those were the only the three times because the one night, first time I was there, was with met you, Sean, Michelle, and Debbie. All of us met for dinner.
Yeah.
And then we did the Champion Square thing. So I'd only got to meet Sean in person like four times. But yeah, he made such an impact on you. As the kids do. I mean, like I said, I think all you guys as extended family.
Well, you like you said too. His son is, and you can see in the picture that one. His son is a spitting image of Sean.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, he just kind of basically carbon copied himself there, and that's why he calls him Drew's dad, because he was crazy about all his kids, but he's really
Hmm.
crazy about the little ones because you're kind of going through this right now. Your kids have a wide range of ages. Mine are
24,
all,
17, and 5.
yeah, mine are all very close together. We had 3 and 5 years, so and they're all in their 20s now. Um, so getting the when you're going through it, especially the first time, um, it just feels like you never get out of diapers, and then when are they going to be independent enough to they can watch themselves on their own? You don't have to worry about getting a babysitter. Then they're in high school, and now I'm got cats in the cradle on my head now. But when you're coming home, Dad, they're kind of like. But when are they? When are they going to stop being the obnoxious teenagers and being the fun kid you knew they were? It's always a life stage. So you
And you're
go through
with the first one, you're terrified the whole way, which
Yeah,
makes it just go that
absolutely.
much faster, and you enjoy less of it. It's not that you don't enjoy it, but you don't enjoy the moments in the moments as much.
Right. And Sean's like you. Sean has two that are much older and then two that are young. So he got that second shot of I've gone through it all. I know these are the good years here, and I know what's coming, but I can enjoy doing all the things I wish I would have been able to do with my first ones, the
Yeah.
practice ones. I always joke, the first set of kids. Because, yeah, I mean, like you said, you're terrified. You're terrified of making a mistake.
Hmm.
And that's for a lot of people, that happens when you become, um, yeah, I know. I'm getting a message. That you always worry that you're going to screw it up. You're not going to do it right. So you get that second chance um, with your new family, almost your new kids. And then for a lot of people, it's when they become grandparents. You get to have the grandkids and then you don't have to worry about anything but spoiling them. So he got to enjoy both. I mean, his it was a grandson. I just drew a blank. His
I
oldest
believe so.
son
I believe so.
had I think it's a boy, and he was looking forward to a lot of that. So I know we would talk a lot about that, but yeah, um, I kept telling him over and over again. I said, "Man, I said I don't need grandkids yet. I'm enjoying the part right now that my kids are old enough that my wife and we have our little time right now.
Hmm.
So that's the good. I'm not going to be upset if I get one, but I'm not ready to be papa yet. My dad's papa, and he can stay papa for a while longer. My dad turns 81 Wednesday, by the way.
Wow.
Tomorrow, 81 years old. If you look at him, people always say over and over again they think he's in his 60s. But my grandmother was the same way. She lived to be 95, I think 94, 95. She died the day after her birthday. But she was saying Debbie's grandmother's the same way, 97 years old. And you would have no idea they were in their 90s. You would thought they hit 60 and they never changed.
Hmm.
Same, same hairstyle, everything, and just looked the same the rest of their lives. So, but anyway, there was something else I wanted to say about Sean a minute ago. It come to me right before we.
If you're anything like me, there's so many things like crammed up here
Right,
right now.
exactly. There was something I was going to bring up a second ago before we got on the thing about his kids, and I just drew a blank on it. Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's my dad. Oh, yeah. So I remember now. So I used to work downtown. Okay, when Sean, um, we met Sean at Walk-Ons.
Hmm.
Actually,
Hmm.
that we would go to go eat when he come in town. And that was the first time I met Michelle. First time I met his kids and everything else like that. But no, I'm sorry, second time. First time I met him, they were coming in for something else, some kind of show that Michelle was doing, and we met Chick-fil-A for breakfast. That was the very first time I met him. Um, but this is the first time that it was like I think his kids were sitting in the car. Even they didn't even want to come in Chick-fil-A. So whatever. Hey, I don't blame them. I mean, it was the they were okay, on the internet. A storm's getting ready to come through here, so I was really nervous about that to begin with. And it's about the time that storm was supposed to start rolling through here. Um, yeah, he would say poor Danny. Everybody says
You
that
would.
about Danny didn't tell. You see, I would tell these stories, but I didn't tell everything that led up to these poor Danny stories. But you know, poor Danny wasn't poor Danny. Um, anyway, um, so Sean and I were just kind of trying to get to know each other a little bit in person. And talking this way is one way, but talking in person is a little bit harder. And
Yeah.
it's strange how that works because I don't know, you're kind of out of your element. So it's like you're sitting there next to that person, you're just going, okay, what do I talk about now? Um,
You and I never had
so,
that problem. We talk about anything and everything.
oh, I know. Well, and we're fortunate that our wives can do that too.
Yeah,
So, because I'm conscious about her too.
of
Not
course.
like the fifth wheel. So it was kind of funny that first time we met, and then when we met at Walk-Ons again, just trying to get that conversation started, and then suddenly, boom, Sean would come out.
Hmm.
He was a little guarded at first, didn't know what to do and like that. Then one thing, and boom, he becomes social, and boom,
Yep.
he starts talking, and it was really fun. You know, Andrew, we had you on the show one time. I don't know if you remember this.
Andrew, I got to
Um,
get you on my show too. I hope you're doing well, my friend.
yeah, we had him on the show, and the funny thing is, the part I remember the most was we for some reason LSU was playing that night, and I think it was a Saturday show, or you've been on twice. Great. I just remember the one that was an LSU game, and like Andrew's trying to pay attention, but clearly he wants to watch the game. And I felt bad the whole time going, Sean, why did you pick tonight? Why did we pick tonight to do the show and have Andrew on here? Because he's watching the game. He's sitting there like this the whole time. That's all I remember. Look, eyes up, looking up, and then you'd ask him a question, he'd go, yeah, and I just kind of remember going back to that, and it was great. It was funny. After the show, I was like, Sean, we don't invite LSU fans onto the show when an LSU game is on, because that's like inviting me in to talk about the Saints while the Saints are playing. That's just not a good idea. Not a good idea. So, but yeah, Andrew is he is a very knowledgeable fan. I'm envious of some of your contacts you have because you get some good scoop. Um, I catch the little morning shows that you do, both when you did them by yourself and also when you did your shows with, excuse me, with Ralph.
Hmm.
So that and I enjoy your takes because
Yeah.
they're good, informative ones.
Oh, no
They're
doubt.
not.
Yeah, Andrew, you have that rare combination of being a consummate pro but entertaining at the same time.
That's got to be Genevieve, my niece. Not only do I remember them, I there's several dorky glasses he's had in his life. Um, no, it's all right. I mean, I don't blame you. I'll be the same way. If I'm watching something and you got me on a show, I'm gonna try and pay attention the best I can. But hey, that's my first love. That's the whole reason I'm watching. I watch football. I watch football to watch the Saints. So I'll watch football to watch, whatever college team you follow, whatever.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's okay. But no, I really, like I said, I really enjoy his takes because um we started the show off talking before we got on the show, I should say. We started talking about how divided Twitter is right now. Saints
Yeah.
Twitter is. And Sean was on Twitter in the beginning. He got off a long time ago, but you see this great divide going on now among Saints fans, and it's a shame because we are all fans of this team, but because Drew isn't there anymore, because Sean isn't there anymore, and I mean Sean Payton, it's almost like I don't want to use the word I don't want to use the term bandwagoners, but it is. It's the casual fans versus the, for lack of a better term, the Madden fantasy football fans, and then
The Madden world that we live in.
yeah, the old timers. Okay, the old timers been there, done that, got the t-shirts. This too shall pass. And then you've got the casual fans. Dennis Allen sucks. There's nothing the man can do to ever get to win. He sucks. He needs to be gone now. And then you have the Madden armchair GM guys who they just want to build the ultimate team roster as if they have an unlimited salary cap and all the other teams are run by John Meekum. They're all stupid. And they're all going to give players away and take our garbage, including our cap. And you get that. And they all fight each other on
Yeah.
social media. And it's just amazing to watch this happen because, like I told one group of them, I was like, you really realize that you're powerless. You can't do a damn thing about whether or not Gail Benson keeps and Mickey Loomis, and whether or not Mickey Loomis keeps Dennis Allen or not. You don't have, And yeah, you're right. You're right, Andrew. It stems from them not living anything past 7 and 10, 7 and 9. Maybe they might remember Katrina year 3 and 13, but you kind of put an asterisk behind it. Yeah, because that's 23 years ago now, talking about when Hazlitt showed up.
Right.
Ditka was 25 years ago. Um, uh, People just don't remember what it was like when you didn't win anything, okay? And the Saints were irrelevant. And it's a shame because the whole reason why these podcasts have all started up, the whole reason why there is a fandom is because after Katrina, and yes, Sean Payton and Drew Brees and instant success have a lot to do with it. The city really rallied around this club, this organization.
Yeah.
And
vice versa. The organization, the franchise fed off of the community too.
Yeah, exactly. And to see it splinter like this now, and I think there's two things going on. I think number one, there's people who believe that the roster, the way it is good enough to get to the NFC Championship game, if not get to the Super Bowl. And then there's people like me, for example, who think that, this is really a 7 to 11 win team that's probably a one and done in the playoffs if they got to the playoffs. They're not there yet. They don't have a quarterback. They need more help in the running back. They need to get healthier. They need a physical receiver. They need a lot, okay, especially on offense.
At the very least, it gives this show, Bayou Blitz, it gives you, Andrew, all the other shows, it gives us things to talk about
Yes,
this offseason for sure. We should actually thank them for that.
Right. Oh, well, it's funny, Paul, you're saying that. The game to me that there were several games that season in 2006. The Steelers game, to me, kind of, even though it was a loss, was kind of that, okay, this team's going to be, this could be a pretty good team. But that Dallas game, that was the game that we're like, you know what, this team's actually going to go somewhere in the playoffs. This is not going to be a one and done team. And that was a Sunday night. We woke my wife and I woke our kids up because we kept running up down the hallway because she was superstitious, okay? Especially her. She's got to be in the back because they're doing well with her watching it in the back room. I'm watching in the front room on the main TV, and she was running up to say, "Did you see that?" And that kind of thing. We're running up down the hall past the kids' bedrooms, and they got school the next day, and they're like, "Mom, Dad, y'all need to be quiet. We're trying to sleep," So, yeah. Alan I was not at that game. I was at quite a few games in 2006, but not that game. So, but yeah, and it's a shame because it's gotten to this point that we have fans now basically turning on each other. And I don't know. For Sean, I think he would just end up being so damn so damn honest, and we would get in trouble because of the profanity. But he would have a lot of choice words to say about these fans, and I'm a little more diplomatic about this, and maybe I am old, but I just, it's gonna pass. You have years like this. Peyton, when he was going through the 7 and 9 seasons, people wanted to fire Peyton.
Yeah.
After the 2016 season, we talked about Barry Hurst's before. Barry is the one that comes to mind. Barry wrote an entire column about how they need to fire Sean Payton after, I think, the 2015 or 2016 season, and replace him with a defensive-minded coach, because we're never going to get a good defense. And somebody's going to develop these defensive players that we drafted. And you know the name he brought up as the head coach? Do you remember the name?
I don't.
Matt Patricia. He wanted to hire Matt as the head coach of the Saints. And the argument was Matt Patricia would build the defense because he was still a hot defensive coordinator with New England.
The Belichick way.
Yes. And Pete Carmichael, the same Pete Carmichael that we're talking about today, and Drew Brees could run the offense. And that was going to be the solution. We didn't really need Peyton. Brees threw for 5,000 yards in 2012 without Peyton even on the sideline. This offense will be fine. And we would have a defensive-minded coach, and we could make this work. And it's just, I think about that, and I don't mean to trash Barry and he's passed on or anything like that, but that's the kind of takes that I see on social media right now. That's the kind of mindset. One guy wants to take the draft pick that we will get for Sean Payton because it's going to happen. But get the first round draft pick we get from Sean Payton, put it in a package deal, and go trade the 49ers for Trey Lance with all these picks that we get. And Trey Lance, that'll be our new quarterback. And like I told you, I said, that's the equivalent of going to a car dealership. Not only am I going to pay sticker price, but go ahead and give me the high interest rate and put it out for 72 or 84 notes at that high interest rate because, damn it, that's what I want. Talk about overpaying for a guy. But that's what you're seeing out there. It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I know we're straying where I'm talking. I promised I would focus on Sean, but
all right. Hey, listen, it wouldn't be an Under the Dome show if we didn't.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. Last comment for you about Sean, because I don't want to stay on way too long. I know you're on the East Coast time, but when you first met Sean on social media, what was that like? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. He actually reached out to me on a couple different times on a couple of my articles because for those of you that don't know, I got started writing for the Saints in 2016. Barry Hurstis brought me on to a publication, now defunct publication called The Big Easy Believer. Yeah. And I mean, I was very much a novice. I'd never done any professional writing, anything like that. And my initial relationship with Sean was basically a teacher-student kind of thing. He would private message. He would start with a comment, a Facebook comment on one of my articles, and then if I responded, then he would private message me. And I think it was the very first time, that it stepped forward that way. We talked about, I'm not going to say, I don't think Sean ever criticized me at all. I don't know what he said behind my back, but I mean, to my face or to me directly, he never had anything even remotely negative. It was always supportive. Yeah. And positive comments. But after he gave me a couple of those on the piece, and I'm like, oh, thank you. What do you think I could improve on? He would fire back, and I think you did great. And then it went immediately into personal life. Him asking me about my parade. I think he got to know me as a person well before I ever came on with you guys. He knew that I'd had 2 daughters. And a son on the way at the time, that I was in this new relationship and, everything like that. So, Sean was very quick to open the door to a personal relationship. And, I think if I were to describe my initial impression of Sean Williams upon first meeting him through social media, the words "at ease" came to mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sean, we didn't talk about this, but Sean was a writer as well.
Yes.
He did his Legends of the Fall series, um, and which it was. What was the name of that? He what was the one he was on? I'm drawing a blank on it now because when you said Big Easy Chronicle, Big Easy Believer, I have forgotten which one he was on. God, I'm mad at myself now because
Yeah, I am too, because
it clicked a
he'd
second
send
ago
me
and I forgot.
articles to
Yeah.
gauge by.
Hmm. And he made some money doing that. He would pro football something. Yeah, yeah, it was. I
Sounds
think you're
right.
right, John. I think you're right. But anyway, he sent a few to me as well, and he was very good. He was very good as a writer.
Hmm.
We have very different writing styles. I know
Yeah.
that. Um, but he put together a nice. I really enjoyed his Legends of the Fall. It was really those were really good pieces. Inspired me to do a couple of things.
Hmm.
Uh, whenever we get into the history of some of the stuff about uniforms and about players and unique names and things like that we had on the team, on the Saints team, and just how much the game itself has changed. Um, so it was not pro football talk. It was something I can almost say it, and um, he was an editor there as well as a writer, and he would bring in other writers too. So I knew he had been recruiting people before to work with him. And it's a site that it doesn't exist anymore either. It kind of went by the wayside, but and he always talked about maybe I'll get back into writing, maybe I'll
Hmm.
start that again because because he of his cancer, he really couldn't work. Um, he was considered disabled, so physical labor he couldn't do. I mean, cooking is one thing, but um, demanding physical labor, he that's not anything he could do anymore. We talked about that many times too.
Yeah.
There we go, pro football spot. And yeah, that's it.
Hmm.
Yep.
Thank you,
And
John.
yes, thank you, John. I knew, and yes, I do remember his laugh. That was my goal every week when we do this show. My goal was to say something so outrageous that it would cause him to laugh. And I would try and time it whenever he was about to drink something. And I wanted to get him to, because I wanted to spit take first off, but secondly, I had to get him to stand up and walk away for a little bit. I was going to say something that, make some kind of comparison or some kind of analogy to make him just lose it because he did have a great laugh.
Yeah, and he had that full body laugh too, where if you
Oh,
got him going,
absolutely.
he would physically have to get up and turn away from you.
Yes, he would shake the whole bit. Absolutely. That's why you did it. That's exactly why you would do things like that. So I would come up with the most bizarre analogies. Watching some football game, I would say the equivalent of watching two paraplegics having a pillow fight. He just get up and start walking away laughing. I was like, yeah, exactly. Um, I do remember one other thing too. I remember him um, when we got Joe Horn on. One of the ways that we got Joe Horn on the show, um, there was some kind of football camp or something that he was doing up in North Louisiana,
Yeah.
and um, we were promoting that a lot
Hmm.
on the show. It was every week we would talk about it's coming up in this date, coming up in this date,
Hmm.
and Sean got out there, and it really didn't turn out to be that big of a camp, and it didn't. It really was disappointing, and for whatever reason, I think it rained that day.
It did.
It just what didn't come out the way it was. But Sean stayed there the entire time, and he stayed out there, and he talked to Joe Horn the entire time, and it was uplifting. He was optimistic, happy. Let's get it. Let's do it. I'm all for this. I'm 100%
Hmm.
in. This is not one of those things where, oh, look, nobody showed up. I guess I'm gonna go. It's kind of lame. And It's not how he was. That's the kind of person he was. Um, yeah, throwing his throwing his head back, laughing. Exactly. So yeah, yeah, exactly. And I know, Paula, getting you to laugh and stuff. Yeah, it's a shame. That's the one. I think that's one of the main things I'm gonna miss. I'm gonna miss the conversations we had before the show started
Yep.
because sometimes they were better than the show itself.
Oh, I loved when one of you guys invited me on with you. I would make sure, and the timing was different for the show then too.
Yeah,
I would make sure to tune in with you guys at least 20 minutes before we went on the air, because that was just the most entertaining and enlightening conversations
oh,
between all three
absolutely,
of us too.
absolutely. He always had a story about something. So, and you know, I promised I wouldn't be a downer, but I'm going to be a little bit for right now. I remember the day after, or 2 days after the fire. So, to set the show up, what I would do is this is on StreamYard. I'd set the thing up, create the blurb, and then I send the link out to join the show. I send it to you, Bob. I sent it to Sean. And because he was no longer on social media, I had to copy it and put it into a text message and send it to him in a text message. And usually he responded pretty quickly. I
Mhm.
got kind of message pretty quick that, yeah, I'll be on it, or, having trouble tonight, whatever.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you real quick,
Yeah.
folks. A lot of you don't realize that at this point in Sean's life, for the last couple of years, the job that he did work was an overnight more often
Yeah.
than not. So when he'd come on this show, oftentimes he'd be going almost 24 hours without sleep.
Yep.
Sorry to
Yep.
interrupt. Go on.
No, no, no. Yeah, and I was going to go there too because he, yeah, he would get on the show, and he was actually on the clock. And Kevo Meredith, um, a huge Bengals fan, he's thrilled right now because the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. Um, but Kevo was his boss, and Kevo said, "No, just do your show at my place,
Hmm.
and you're fine." Because before that, he was trying to do it. This is how far back we go. He was trying to do the show because he didn't have Wi-Fi. Would try and do it from his phone in the car outside of a Chick-fil-A parking lot. He would try and do it from his apartment, and he's trying to pick up Wi-Fi signals, and he couldn't get that, and he'd have all kinds of issues and problems. Um, he used to try and set his phone or his iPad up on this creation he had, and it would make a ton of noise. He'd get a set of headphones, they don't work. He'd take them off, put another headphone on with a microphone. The headphones worked, the microphone didn't. So he'd have to use the phone's microphone. So yeah, he'd have a ton of problems getting the show together, and he'd get so frustrated. But so I try and set him up ahead of time so he was in a great place. He was ready to go and that kind of stuff. And I didn't get any response from him. I'm like, that's weird. So the show comes, it's getting time for the show. We come in, and I I'm waiting for him to pop in, and he doesn't pop in. So I texted him again. I said, "Hey, you coming on tonight, right?" No response. We do the show, the entire show. He never comes on. I said, "Man, there's something strange going on tonight. I don't know what it is." So, I go and I call him after the show. Phone goes straight to voicemail. I said, "This is not good." Call again, straight to voicemail. A couple of days have passed now, so I start reaching out to those people, find out what's going on. That's when I found out about the fire. So, I think about that a lot because my mind immediately went to a dark place because he lives alone. Okay, and he had a girlfriend, and she passed away a few months, well, almost 6 months earlier. And I thought about that too. Because he was really depressed about this. He and I spent a lot of time on the phone, talking about that situation. Her name was Casey. Casey and his life, what's going on, and the issues he was having, seeing his kids and everything else. And I mean, I sat there for a long time giving him advice, not only as a parent, but also as a fellow human being that would go through these things. And we just sat there and talked and talked and talked. And believe it or not, he was doing most of the talking, not me. But I, and this is 2, 3 hours. And at the end, he says, "Man, really appreciate you listening." I said, "That's what I do. You know, you need someone to talk to." I said, "Don't hesitate to reach out to me." I said, "If I can't talk to you right then, I will call you back."
Yeah.
So, when he didn't, uh, respond to anything on that, that's when I found out about that fire. And it was, thank you, Paula. It was July of 2021. See, that's what I mean. The years just kind of blow by. They really do. I, that's
The
the other
older
thing.
we get,
Yeah,
we're
that's the
like on
other
a
thing.
greased hillside on in that Christmas Vacation movie.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so Kevo, Andrew, good, good. Yeah, Kevo's a good dude. Kevo's a
Yeah.
good dude. He's a fundraiser for Sean. You know, I didn't even know the extent of damage into his apartment or anything like that. But yeah, that's funny. July of 2021. We're in 2023. I have the 2009 game on right now. It was played this date in 2010. That's 13 years ago. John Butler. I was at that game. Um, I really was at that game. And in fact, I had this jersey. No, I had my other Reggie Bush jersey on. I can't wear that one anymore. But this one, I had this one on. I had this number on. That's why I'm wearing it. Um, but yeah, it doesn't seem like that was 13 years ago. It seems like that was just a couple seasons ago.
Mhm.
You know, um, that game happened longer than Archie Manning's entire career with the Saints. If you put it that way, Archie was here for 11 years. That game's 13 years ago.
Wow.
You oh, I have a friend. I have a friend who does this kind of shit to me all the time. He says, in 1974, when Happy Days came on, that was supposed to be 20 years earlier. So in 1954, so he's
Right.
taking place. So today, that would be like watching a TV show about life in 2003. I'm like, dude, don't do that. Don't I don't need to think like that. He says, yeah, can you imagine doing a TV show about that? That kind of stuff. Um,
But
but
yeah, Paula, yeah, Sean and I were kind of kindred spirits in the way that we didn't sleep.
mhm.
Um, we kept hours like a vampire at times too. And yeah, Sean would often just call me at 1:30 in the morning, and I'd answer on the first ring, and he'd be like, "Oh," he goes, "I see you were awake too," and we just chat. Not always about football. In fact, not usually about football. Um,
No.
yeah, he was a fun guy to talk to. And you're both right, Paula, Allen. When Casey passed away, that took a piece of him.
Mhm.
Um, he still lived for his kids. And kids, in case you're watching, I know you already know this, but know that you were Sean's world.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, he was that kind of caring person. When Barry died a couple of years ago, that hit him hard too.
Mhm.
He was a legitimately caring person. If you were in his life, you were a part of his life.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And that was where I was going with this. You know, Sean Sean was a giving person, but there were things that he needed too, and
Yeah.
that's how I was for him. I wanted to be that person he could go to when he needed to have that voice, just to let him know things are all right. Somebody cares. He was very close to his mom. He would
Yeah.
talk to his mom a lot about stuff. I no, I wasn't, Andrew. Unfortunately, Sean never could get on his phone again. He had that tube in his mouth, in his throat, all the way until the week before New Year's, the week of New Year's, I should say. Um, his son talked to me about it though, and his son said, he took the tube, was able to get the tube out of his mouth. Talked about it and said he has no idea what caused the fire. He didn't have any memory of what happened. Um, he said it was just a total blank. I said 1 minute he was in bed, and next minute he's in the hospital, coming to, and they told him that there was a fire and he had burns and so forth. I mean, I thought, when they said the first story I got was that he was probably going to lose his all his fingers and his
Yeah.
thumb in his left hand, and I'm going, oh my God, he's a musician. You know, that's almost a fate worse than death. Um, to lose part of your talent like that, but they ended up saving that. But he also had to have skin grafts and things like that. But it was the smoke inhalation and probably embers he was breathing in that really seared and damaged his lungs to that point. So yeah, um, I appreciate that, EJ. Yeah, yeah. So I never got a chance to talk to him about it. I just got it through his oldest son, who's in the picture. He told me about Jonathan's his name. He told me about the conversations he had with him about it. But one of the things, he told me that he was really looking forward to getting out of the hospital and just trying to get his life back together. And he said, "I can do this. I can, I can beat this. I beat cancer. I can beat
Mhm.
this." Um, but it was just hard for him. It was hard for him to talk. It was a lot of effort for him. It was almost like a whisper sometimes when he talked, and that was why I was trying to make the effort on Saturday to go see him. You've heard me cough a few times. I had a cold, caught it on Thursday, and Theraflu is a miracle drug, by the way. But I I thought I was well enough to try and go see him, and it just didn't work out. It really, and that's probably one of the things that I'm going to regret the most is I didn't get a chance to say goodbye in person.
I get it because I tried to scrape together. Yeah, after Christmas is just so hard for everybody. Yeah, I would have loved to scrape together the money to to fly down, yeah, and see him too, but it wasn't meant to be. And I know what you're going through because I'm beating myself up about it too. Hey, if I just would have put this bill off or put that bill off, maybe, just maybe. But you're right, Andrew. Life can be cruel in that way, a cruel tease. Um, but Sean
There's a
touched us all and touched us all in positive ways. And
Absolutely.
I hope that's what everybody is taking away from this, if nothing else.
Look, there's a line. It's not a very good movie. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's not a very good movie. It's better than the Temple of Doom, but it's not what I'd rather watch Last Crusade than the original more than any other film. Okay, but there's a line in that movie when he's talking about the people who Marcus and his dad that passed on, and the line goes, "We've reached a point in our lives where life stops giving us things and starts taking them away." And it always sticks with me because, yeah, I have I don't know about you guys, but on social media, I have a lot of friends who I've never met in person. Okay. Those are my internet friends. I have
Mhm.
friends that I do know and I grown up with. It's funny because I've got, and I'm sure most of you are the same way. You've got your childhood friends that you may be still in touch with. You got your high school friends that you don't see them that much, but there's still high school. Then you got your college friends or your post high school friends that you've been friends with for a long, long time. Okay. Then I have my internet friends, people that I've never met in person, but I've talked to or have conversations with all the time. And since I've been on Facebook, Twitter, whatever, and I started all this crap in the early 2000s, I got into those social media sites. I wasn't on MySpace, but anyway, since I've gotten on those things, um, there's people that I've known for 15, 20 years and never met them in person. Okay. And it's weird because they have become friends of mine.
Yep.
We have in-depth conversations that have nothing to do with wherever we met, a music board, a Saints board, anything like that. That I've never met in person, but I've gotten to know them, and they go through health problems. Some of them have passed away, and I feel like hey, I've lost something that really matters to me. There's a
Hmm.
guy in Canada, never met him. He and I just hit it off because we thought alike, which was a scary thing. And then we found out, he was a fan of this show. I was a fan of this show. He read comic books. I read comic books. So, we would have been great friends in person
Hmm.
because we had so many things that were alike. He had some crazy ex-girlfriends. I didn't have that, but he had crazy ex-girlfriends, and he would tell me about these girlfriends and stuff. And he was married, had a great wife, but he passed away. And I felt like, man, I lost somebody that I think about to this day. He had a screen. His screen name was Drac. Okay, and that wasn't his real name was Mark, and that's but he would call himself Drac on the screen, and I'd be like, man, I wonder what Drac would think about this right now. When the Saints won the Super Bowl, he was one of the first messages I got. He says, "Man, I know how much of a Saints fan you are." He says, I watch hockey. I don't watch football, but man, I know what it's like, and I'm so happy for you." That kind of thing, and it's really unique. That's the good thing about social media.
Yep.
That's the good thing when you get to see, and I'm thinking about you, John Butler, right now when you say that. We're lucky to cross paths with Sean. You know, um, yeah, internet friend. Yes, you are. It's so lucky. I guess that's the good thing about social media. You can actually make contact and connect with people this way. That how many of you guys? I know Paula, you have, and I know Calvin has. But how many of you guys actually met Sean in person? Yet look at how his death has touched you. Just because of this show. Okay, and that's when I wish they would blow up Twitter or they'd shut all of social media down. At the same time, um, I think about these things. Oh, you're ready to enter the twilight zone, aren't you, EJ? Okay, all right. Yeah, you get to know somebody. Bob, you and I would have never met if it wasn't for social media. You
Right.
know,
I,
um,
I I wouldn't be doing this job if it wasn't for internet. I'm still trapped in Western Pennsylvania, so
yeah,
and like you just said, friends, followers on Facebook or Twitter have gotten to know a lot of you. Have been privileged enough to get to know a lot of you, to the point that, like you just said, not all conversations are New Orleans Saints related or whatever avenue that we met. Checking in on each other. If you see a post, hey, you doing all right? Because it doesn't sound like it. Or hey, congratulations on this happening or that happened. I'm so happy for you. Those are the positive things out of social media.
yeah. Too many people let politics and religion or identity, whatever, pick your thing, kind of determine their friendships, and you really shouldn't because, and I saw that, John, and I was really shocked, and I really appreciate that too. And that's where I started to show off with. I didn't realize the impact, how many friends he had, because, um, that's the part of that was the real reason why social media was created. I got into somebody I was friends with and unfriended me, unfortunately. Um, Years and years ago, we got into an argument about politics or something stupid like that. And I said that. I said, listen, I didn't friend request you or didn't become friends with you because you and I thought the same on every single thing in life. In fact, I don't give a damn about your politics, and you really shouldn't
Right.
care about mine. Um, I came on this site, and I like looking at your family growing up.
Hmm.
I like looking at you on vacation. I like seeing the places where you've gone, the adventures in your life, the funny things that happen in your life. That's what matters to me.
Yeah.
Not your politics, not your religion. And too many people have forgotten that because we've become so. I can't be friends with that person because he's a Trump supporter. I can't be friends with that person because he's a Biden supporter. I can't be friends with that person because he doesn't use the right pronouns or whatever it is. That's a stupid reason. And events like Sean passing make me think about that. And
Hmm.
we can't um, let that be what defines us because there's some things that I never thought of because I live in South Louisiana and I've been in a lot of places, but there's a whole nother world out there that I don't know anything about that person may be in. And it's interesting to hear from their point of view,
Yeah.
hear their side. So yeah, it's just yeah, I know, Paula, but don't beat yourself up over that. It happens. I never met my friend Mark, who lived in Canada. And Mark gave me stuff. Okay. Um, he presented his collection of music to me and says, hey, pick what you want out of that. Because he had a terminal case. He died from non Hodgkin's lymphoma. Um, Pick what you want out of that. I said, well, you know what? I'll take these things from you, but I'm borrowing them from you because I'm giving them back to you after you beat this. And he's like, well, the doctor says, I said, I don't give a damn what the doctor says. You're getting this stuff back. And I have it. I mean, he gave me some very cool stuff, autograph stuff, things like that, and when I play those CDs or look at those videos and stuff that he sent me, I'm like, that's Mark's. I'm just borrowing it, So that's the thing that I want you to take out of this, Paula, think about the stuff that y'all did share. Don't worry about whether or not you saw him in person, because this is almost in person. And you probably know him better that way than you probably would have known him in person because, like I said, when we met at Chick-fil-A, it was very awkward in the beginning. And then something would open up and we became social again. This format and social media allows us to, I don't know, be a little more honest and forthcoming about some of our stuff. Allows us to be fake too, but be a little honest and forthcoming. So, Bob, I kept you way up past your bedtime. I know. I could talk like this for hours and just stuff that runs through my mind. Real quick, what's happening to Bayou Blitz tomorrow night?
Obviously, there's Sean Payton news happening daily. So we're going to address that. There's the Bengals Chiefs, Eagles 49ers. So Brendan and I will probably talk about that too. I gone under all the coaching rumors about Sean Payton is the fact that the Saints have a couple of exciting young assistant coaches that are going to be working in a promoted role on the Senior Bowl staff. So we're going to be talking about Ronald Curry, Declan Doyle, Corey Robinson are the three Saints assistants that'll be serving, and like I said, promoted roles from what they've served with the Saints. So it's kind of exciting what the Senior Bowl is doing. In my opinion, anyway, it's still way too early to talk about player movement. Who to sign, who to draft. Right now there'd be plenty of the off season for that. But other than that, whatever happens to come to our feeble little minds. But folks, make sure you do tune into the Bayou Blitz. We're doing it tomorrow night. We typically run live on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. on Central Time, 9 p.m. if you're on the East Coast. So please check us out. Hopefully you'll enjoy that product as much as you enjoy this one.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll spend next week. We'll talk about the Super Bowl, NFC Championship, AFC Championship this weekend. The best game, in my opinion, is going to probably be the 49ers Eagles game.
Yeah.
It feels a lot like this one over here. That if you knew these two teams were going to end up playing each other. Bengals, Chiefs. That's going to be a good game as well. But I don't know how that game's going to turn out with Mahomes' ankle and everything else. I don't have a good feeling about that game for Kansas City. But thank you, Andrew, for joining us, man, because I appreciated you chiming in.
Thank you, Andrew.
That absolutely means a lot. So anyway, in the meantime, we'll get into that. You got 2 weeks for the Super Bowl. I think they have a flag football Pro Bowl, which, my God, can we make this any worse? But maybe we'll talk about how to fix the Pro Bowl.
There you go. Get some of you guys involved. We're all ideas here.
Absolutely. In the meantime, thank you guys for joining us. And in honor of Sean, we'll see you next time. Is it like that? Is it the Spider-Man thing? I'm terrible. I know he's a Dio fan, so I don't know anymore. But
I'm not. You know what? I'll do this with one hand and just this with the other.
There we go.
I figure we're not violating any rules as long as I keep the middle finger out of the equation. Sean, I love you, brother. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Sean, and we're going to keep going on in honor of you. So thank you all very much. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.